"There's no room at Thanksgiving," Mom texted, but I saw my cousin's Instagram stories from that same dinner table I was supposedly banned from. When I discovered why they really didn't want me there, I realized my entire family had been playing a game I didn't even know existed. "I'm Chloe, I'm 30, and I thought I knew my family." I thought wrong. It started with a simple text message on a Tuesday morning in November. I was sitting in my small apartment in downtown Riverside, getting ready for work at the marketing firm where I'd been climbing the ladder for the past 5 years. The autumn light was filtering through my kitchen window, casting golden streaks across my breakfast table as I scrolled through my phone with my coffee getting cold. Then I saw it. "Sorry, honey. We just don't have space this year. Maybe next time." I stared at the screen for what felt like an eternity. No space at my childhood home in Hazelton Grove. The same sprawling colonial house where we'd somehow managed to cram what felt like half the county around mismatched tables. Every Thanksgiving for the past 30 years of my life, my mom, Diane, was legendary for her ability to make room. She was the woman who would drag chairs from the basement, set up card tables in the hallway, and somehow turn her dining room into a magical space that could accommodate anyone who showed up. I'd seen her handle surprise guests, last-minute additions, and even that one year when Aunt Celeste brought her new boyfriend and his 3 kids without warning. I set my coffee mug down with shaking hands and typed back, "What do you mean no space? How many people are coming this year?" The little dots appeared immediately. Like she'd been waiting for my response. "Oh, you know how it is, sweetheart. Your Aunt Celeste is bringing her whole crew from Portland, and Uncle Gerald's family is coming down from Seattle. Plus your cousin Brianna just had the baby, so they need extra space. It's just a lot this year." I read the message 3 times, trying to make sense of it. Aunt Celeste usually brought maybe 6 people. Uncle Gerald's family was 4 people max. Even with cousin Brianna's new baby, we were talking about maybe 15 people total. In a house that had regularly accommodated 25, something was wrong with this math. I tried calling her. It went straight to voicemail. "Hi, you've reached Diane. I'm probably in the garden or baking something delicious. Leave a message and I'll get back to you." Her voice was bright and cheerful, the same voicemail greeting she'd had for 5 years. "Hey Mom, it's me. Just wanted to talk about Thanksgiving. Call me back when you get this, okay?" She didn't call back that day. Or the next. By Thursday, I was starting to feel a knot of anxiety in my stomach that I couldn't shake. This wasn't like my mom. Diane Morrison was many things scattered, overly optimistic, prone to taking on too much, but she wasn't avoidant. She'd never ignored my calls before, especially not about something as important as Thanksgiving. I tried my dad next. Howard Morrison, retired electrician. Man of few words but usually reliable for straight answers. "Dad, it's Chloe. Hey kiddo. What's up?" "Mom says there's no room for me at Thanksgiving this year." "Is that really true?" There was a pause. A long pause. In my family, long pauses meant someone was either thinking very carefully about their words or trying to figure out how to avoid telling the truth. "Well," he said finally, "your mother knows best about these things. You know how she gets about the house and the numbers and all that." "Dad, come on. Since when do we not have room? Remember the year you built that extra table in the garage? Because we had so many people, that was different." "How was it different?" Another pause. "Look, Chloe, why don't you just maybe it would be good for you to start your own traditions anyway. You're 30. Most people your age do their own thing." Most people my age do their own thing. The words hit me like a slap. Since when was I most people? To my own father. "Dad, what's really going on?" "Nothing's going on. Your mother she's got a lot on her plate this year." And then he did something my father had never done in 30 years of phone conversations. He hung up on me. I sat in my living room, staring at my phone, feeling like I'd just stepped into some alternate universe where my parents had suddenly become strangers. My dad, the man who'd taught me to change a tire and had never missed a single one of my soccer games, had just brushed me off like I was some telemarketer. That night, I called my best friend Jasmine. "They're being weird," I told her, pacing around my apartment. "Really weird. Like, Weirdly weird. Maybe they're planning a surprise party for you or something, Jasmine suggested, though she didn't sound convinced. At Thanksgiving, that doesn't make sense. Okay, then maybe they're having money problems and they're embarrassed about not being able to afford a big dinner. I stopped pacing. That actually made some sense. My parents weren't wealthy. Dad had been retired for 3 years, and Mom only worked part-time at the local library. Maybe they were struggling and didn't want to admit it. But they could have just told me, I said. I would have offered to help, or we could have done something smaller. Pride, Chloe. You know how parents get about pride. She was right. My parents, especially my dad, had always been fiercely independent. They'd helped me through college, supported me when I was job hunting, celebrated every promotion and milestone. But they'd never, ever asked me for money or help, even when I'd offered. Maybe that was it. Maybe they were going through a rough patch financially and couldn't bear the thought of me knowing. I felt better after talking to Jasmine. It made sense. It was a reasonable explanation that didn't require me to believe my parents had suddenly turned into completely different people. So I decided to be understanding. I sent my mom a text. Hey Mom. I understand if things are tight this year. We don't need a big dinner. I could come over and we could order pizza or something. Just want to spend time with family. No response. Friday came and went. Saturday. Sunday. By Monday. I was starting to feel hurt, not just confused, but actually hurt. Even if they were having money problems, even if they were embarrassed, this was still their daughter they were ignoring. I'd never gone more than a few days without talking to my mom, and now it had been almost a week. I drove out to Hazelton Grove that Monday after work. It was about a 40-minute drive from my apartment in Riverside, through winding roads lined with oak trees that were showing off their full autumn colors. The town itself was small, the kind of place where everyone knew everyone, and the biggest excitement was usually the annual Harvest Festival. My parents' house sat on Maple Street, a quiet residential road where I'd learned to ride a bike and had my first kiss on the front porch swing. The house looked exactly the same as always, white colonial with blue shutters. My mom's flower boxes still hanging from the front windows even though the summer blooms had long since died. I parked in the driveway and walked up to the front door, the same path I'd taken thousands of times over the years. I had my own key, but I knocked first. It felt weird to just walk in when I hadn't been invited. My mom answered the door, and for just a split second, I saw something flash across her face. Surprise, guilt, fear, but then her expression smoothed into the bright, cheerful smile I knew so well. Chloe, what a nice surprise. Hey Mom. I was in the neighborhood and thought I'd stop by. We haven't talked in a while. Oh, you know how busy things get. Come in, come in. She stepped aside to let me in, but something felt off. The house was clean to clean. Usually. My mom's house had that lived-in feeling, with mail scattered on the kitchen counter and books stacked on every surface. But today, everything looked staged, like she'd been expecting company. Want some coffee? She asked, already heading toward the kitchen. Sure. I followed her, looking around. Everything seemed normal on the surface, but I couldn't shake the feeling that something was different. It took me a moment to figure out what it was. The photos were wrong. Not wrong exactly, but rearranged. The family photos that usually covered the mantel and the side tables had been reorganized. Some were missing entirely. Specifically, several photos that included me seemed to have disappeared. Mom, I said carefully, did you redecorate? Oh, just a little freshening up. You know how I get when the seasons change. She did like to rearrange things, that was true, but she'd never removed family photos before. We sat in the kitchen with our coffee, making small talk about work and the weather. But the whole time, I could feel this undercurrent of tension, like we were both performing in a play where I didn't know my lines. So, I said finally, about Thanksgiving. Her smile faltered for just a moment. Oh honey, I told you. We just don't have space this year. Mom, I'm one person. I could sleep on the couch if needed. I just want to be with family. It's not just about sleeping arrangements, sweetie. It's about, well, you know how complicated family gatherings can be. Complicated how? She waved her hand vaguely. Oh, different personalities, different opinions about things. Sometimes it's easier to keep things simple, different opinions. About what, I wanted to ask, but something in her tone warned me not to push. I stayed for another hour, but the conversation never felt natural. It was like talking to a stranger who was trying very hard to pretend to be my mother. When I finally left, she hugged me at the door and told me she loved me, but even that felt rehearsed. Driving home, I couldn't stop thinking about those missing photos, and the way she'd avoided eye contact when she talked about different opinions, and how my dad had hung up on me. Something was definitely wrong, but I had no idea what. That night, I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, running through every possible explanation I could think of. Maybe they were getting divorced and didn't want to deal with family drama. Maybe someone in the family had said something about me that had upset them. Maybe they were planning some kind of intervention because they thought I worked too much or needed to settle down. None of it made sense. By Tuesday, I was driving myself crazy with speculation. I decided to call my cousin Brianna, the one with the new baby. If anyone would give me a straight answer, it would be her. We'd been close growing up, only 2 years apart in age, and she'd never been one to sugarcoat things. Brianna, it's Chloe. Oh, hi, Chloe. How are you? Her voice sounded weird, careful, like she was choosing her words very deliberately. I'm good. I heard congratulations are in order. Mom mentioned you had the baby. Yeah, little Samuel. He's perfect. That's so great. I can't wait to meet him at Thanksgiving. Silence. Brianna, yeah, I'm here. About Thanksgiving, Mom says there's no room for me this year. Which is weird, right? I mean, you know how these family things usually go. More silence. Brianna, what's going on? Chloe. I think you should talk to your parents about this. I tried. They're being weird and evasive. Dad literally hung up on me. I heard her sigh. Look, I can't. This isn't my place to get involved in family stuff. Family stuff? What family stuff? What are you talking about? I really think you need to talk to your parents. And then she hung up too. I sat there holding my phone, feeling like I was going insane. First my parents, now my cousin. It was like everyone in my family had gotten together and decided to speak in code. That's when I remembered Instagram. Brianna was always posting pictures of everything: her food, her workouts, her baby, family gatherings. If something was really going on with Thanksgiving planning, she'd probably have posted about it. I opened Instagram and went to her profile. Her most recent post was from that morning, a picture of baby Samuel sleeping. Before that, a few photos from the past week of her getting the nursery ready, some pictures of meals she'd cooked, and then I saw it 3 days ago. A photo of her and her husband at what looked like a family planning meeting. They were sitting around a dining room table with papers spread out in front of them, and the caption read, "Getting everything organized for the big family Thanksgiving, so excited to have everyone together. #family, #Thanksgiving, #blessed." I zoomed in on the photo. The papers on the table looked like lists, seating charts, maybe menu planning, and there, just visible in the corner of one of the papers, I could make out handwriting. Names written in columns. I screenshotted the photo and zoomed in as far as I could. The resolution wasn't great, but I could make out some of the names: Gerald plus family, Celeste plus kids, Howard, Diane. And at the bottom of one column, there was a name that had been crossed out so thoroughly I couldn't read it, but it was in the right spot, the spot where my name should have been. My hands were shaking as I put my phone down. They hadn't run out of room. They had deliberately crossed me off the list. But why? I spent the rest of that evening going through Brianna's Instagram more carefully, looking for clues. I found photos from family gatherings over the past few months that I hadn't been invited to. A barbecue at Uncle Gerald's house in August, a birthday party for Aunt Celeste in September, a baby shower for Brianna in October that I hadn't even known about. How had I missed all of this? How had my entire family been getting together without me and I hadn't noticed? The answer was simple and devastating, because I'd been trusting them when they said they were busy, or tired, or that it was just a small gathering. Because I'd believed them when they made excuses, because I'd trusted my family to tell me the truth. I realized I'd been systematically excluded from family events for months, maybe longer. And I'd been so busy with work, so focused on my own life, that I hadn't even noticed. The worst part was that I still didn't know why. What had I done? What had changed? When had I gone from being a beloved daughter and cousin to someone who got crossed off guest lists? I needed answers, and I was going to get them, even if it meant confronting my entire family. But first, I needed to figure out exactly how deep this went. That night, I made a decision that would change everything. I was going to find out the truth about what was really happening at that Thanksgiving dinner I wasn't invited to, and I was going to make sure they knew I knew. Looking back now, I can see all the signs I missed, but at the time, everything had seemed so perfectly normal. That's the thing about families, you trust them to be honest with you, especially when you've never given them a reason not to be. I'd always been the dependable one. The daughter who called every Sunday, who remembered birthdays, who showed up when people needed help. When Aunt Celeste was going through her divorce 2 years ago, I was the one who drove to Portland every weekend to help her pack boxes and paint her new apartment. When Uncle Gerald had his heart surgery last spring, I was there in the hospital waiting room with everyone else, bringing coffee and keeping track of visiting hours. I'd been the family problem solver, the reliable one, the glue that held things together when drama erupted. Cousin Brianna used to call me the family diplomat because I was always smoothing over arguments and making sure everyone felt included. So when had that changed? When had I gone from being essential to being expendable? Wednesday morning, I woke up with a plan. I was going to do some detective work. If my family was systematically excluding me, there had to be evidence beyond just Brianna's Instagram. I needed to understand the scope of what was happening. I started with Facebook. My mom was old school about social media. She posted everything. Garden pictures, recipe successes and failures, random thoughts about the weather. If there had been family gatherings, she would have posted about them. I scrolled back through the past 6 months of her posts, and there it was. A pattern I'd been blind to. August 15th, wonderful BBQ with the family today, so blessed to have everyone together. The photo showed Uncle Gerald's backyard, packed with relatives I recognized. I could see Brianna, her husband Tyler, Aunt Celeste, Uncle Gerald, my parents, even some distant cousins I hadn't seen in years. September 22nd, celebrating our beautiful Celeste today. Another year of wisdom and joy. A birthday party I hadn't known about, at what looked like my parents' house. The dining room I'd grown up in was decorated with balloons and streamers. October 10th. Baby shower time. Can't wait to meet our newest family member, Brianna's baby shower, held at Aunt Celeste's new place. The living room was filled with wrapped gifts and women from both sides of the family. October 28th. Pre-Halloween family fun. The kids are getting so big. A costume party that had apparently happened at Uncle Gerald's house. Kids I hadn't seen since last Christmas were running around in superhero costumes. Every single post had dozens of comments from family members. Had such a great time, thanks for hosting, can't wait for the next one. I wasn't in any of the photos. I wasn't tagged in any of the posts. And most tellingly, there were no comments from me saying things like sorry I missed it, or wish I could have been there, because I hadn't known any of these events were happening. I grabbed a notebook and started making a timeline. Every family gathering I could find evidence of, cross-referenced with what I remembered being told about why I wasn't invited. The BBQ in August. I'd called my mom that weekend to see if she wanted to have lunch, and she'd said she was exhausted from yard work and needed to rest. Aunt Celeste's birthday in September. No one had mentioned it was her birthday when I'd called to check in that week. Brianna's baby shower in October. I'd specifically asked Brianna when the shower was going to be, and she'd said they weren't doing one because she was too tired to plan anything. The Halloween party. I'd texted Uncle Gerald about getting together soon, and he'd replied that things were crazy busy with work and he'd reach out when things calmed down. They hadn't just excluded me, they'd actively lied to keep me away. But why? I was starting to feel sick to my stomach. This wasn't just about Thanksgiving. This was about months of deliberate deception from every single person in my family that I trusted. My phone rang, startling me out of my investigation. It was Jasmine. "Hey, how are you holding up?" she asked. "Not great. I think this is bigger than I thought." I told her about the social media evidence, about the timeline I was building. She listened without interrupting, which I appreciated. Jasmine had always been a good listener. "Chloe," she said when I finished, "this is really messed up. Like, really messed up. Have you considered that maybe you should just ask someone directly what's going on?" I tried that. Everyone's giving me the runaround. Then maybe you need to show up somewhere they're not expecting you. The idea hit me like lightning. Thanksgiving was still a week away, but what if there were other family events happening that I didn't know about? What if I could catch them in the act? I went back to social media, this time looking for any hints about upcoming gatherings. It didn't take long to find what I was looking for. Buried in the comments of Brianna's latest baby photo was an exchange between her and Aunt Celeste. "Celeste, see you tomorrow for dinner planning." "Can't wait, Brianna." "Me too. 6 p.m. still work." "Celeste, perfect. I'll make that spinach dip you love." Tomorrow was Thursday. They were meeting to plan Thanksgiving dinner. The dinner I wasn't invited to, and they were meeting at 6 p.m., which meant I could be there by 6:15. It was time to get some answers. Up next, you've got 2 more standout stories right on your screen. If this one hit the mark, you won't want to pass these up. Just click and check them out, and don't forget to subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss any upload from us.